Hi, I'm MacKenzie Fegan, and this is 112BK coming to you from downtown Brooklyn. On the show today, to avoid any spoilers, an actor of the critically acclaimed and Pulitzer Prize winning play Fairview and I may be sitting in silence for the next 20 minutes. So, do you like acting?
Oh, y-
Fairview, the play currently mounted around the corner at the Theater for a New Audience, has been getting lots of attention. It won playwright Jackie Sibblies Drury the Pulitzer Prize. It's been playing for packed audiences, extended and extended again, and all upcoming performances are nearly sold out. I saw it a couple weeks ago, and it ruined me. I wish I could tell you what it's about, but I can't. Saying anything at all about it really risks ruining the whole point of the play, which means that my next guest and I may very well end up sitting in silence for 20 minutes exchanging knowing looks. So get ready for some riveting content. Here to talk or not talk about her role in the play is Obie award-winning actor Heather Alicia Simms. Welcome to 112BK.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your Obie.
Thank you.
So what do you say the play is about when your friends and family are like, oh, Fairview, like, what's that? What's that play about? What am I going to go see?
Our choreographer, as we were grappling with this, he likened it to 3 essays. And so I think of it as 3 conversations. And I think when you're watching it, people are like, oh, okay, I know what this is. And then it moves, and then it becomes something else. And then it moves again, and it becomes something totally different. So I say it's the conversation about race that you didn't know that you needed to have.
And I think that for the sake of this conversation, we can very comfortably talk about the first act, sort of touch on the second, and not at all talk about the third.
Exactly.
That was something that I really found fascinating, was the way in which the playwright lulls you into a sense of security or makes you feel very proud of yourself for having discovered what's going on. And as soon as you feel like you are on firm ground, pulls the rug out from underneath you. What was it like the first time you read the play?
Reading it is a very different experience than actually performing it. And I think you can be lulled and say, what is this? Because what Jackie's doing, and it really is evident in the doing of it, is she's smashing conventions. You know, she's like, oh, that's a convention. Let me take my hammer and smash it to pieces. And so reading it, we were like, oh, what's happening? Okay, this is a nice play. And then we move, and you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot going on. It's a mixed bag of emotions.
I purposefully didn't read much about the play because I knew I wasn't supposed to before going to see it. But I opened the playbill and I saw that Jackie's previous work was a play that I had seen, and it's called, I'm just going to read it because it's long. We are proud to present a presentation about the Herero of Namibia, formerly known as Southwest Africa, from the German Südwest Africa between the years 1884 and 1915. And when I saw that she had written that, I was like, oh, this is going to be so fucked up. Because that play is also, it smashes conventions, and it's about race, and it's devastating. Were you familiar with her work before you were cast in Fairview?
I was. I saw Proud to Present.
Yes.
No one says the whole play.
Right.
His name. I saw Proud to Present, and I remember sitting at Soho Rep trying to figure out what I had just seen because it was epic. She writes in a way that makes you think about things that you didn't know you were supposed to think about. And I saw her play Mary Seacole again, taking a story that very few people know about, a Jamaican nurse during the Crimean Wars, and placing those the parallel between Jamaican or immigrant caretakers in this country and what this woman was doing during that time when white women were nurses and suffragettes and the plight of Black women and women of color was pushed to the background. So she's able to grapple with things that seem really ordinary and heighten them.
And the first act of the play is quite ordinary in plot, right? It's about a dinner party, a family dinner party. You play the mother of the family, and you are preparing a birthday meal for your mother. And the other characters are your husband, your daughter, and your sister.
Right.
The play opens with you peeling carrots.
Right.
And you're listening to Sly and the Family Stone on the stereo. It's a family affair. And then something happens to the music. What is it?
A glitch. A glitch happens. You know, it moves to a family affair, but we have someone else singing it. And we're like, what? I'm like, what's happening? What just happened? But it's just something that I can't focus on because I have this family dinner. And, you know, it's like any important family dinner, and you have to get this meal prepared.
This glitch that you call it is sort of the only moment where we're like, oh, that's odd, and maybe this play is going to transcend a kitchen sink dramedy. It's sort of a white cover or remix of the song. Would you say that accurately
Yeah, I
describes
believe
it?
it's Bob Dylan.
Is it?
Yeah.
That makes sense. The acting style in the first act is not exactly what I would call naturalistic.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what you bring to that first act and the choices that are made in terms of sort of like broader acting style?
Well, not giving too much away, but the way that the set, Mimi's set, it looks like a television screen, you know? And so when we were talking about the play in the beginning, Jackie and Sarah likened it to a sitcom a la Family Matters or Fresh Prince or The Cosby Show. And so we are that family, that Black family that you see and you have a good time with. They may grapple with some issues, but in the end, everything is okay. And I think in the beginning, people are like, what is this style? Why are they acting that way?
Right.
It's supposed to live a bit in the world of a sitcom.
I'm curious about how that impacted the way that you approached the role of Beverly, or if it did at all. Because, you know, as we said, the first act is just sort of this like family dramedy where you're in conflict with your sister and you have issues with your daughter. And then the play morphs into something else. Did you approach it the same way that you would have approached any role of a mother grappling with a daughter and sister, or were there other elements of your preparation that you had to handle differently?
I didn't know what this play was and how it worked, and I'd never done anything like this. And I know that people have never seen anything like this. And so I had to rely not just on myself, but on the other actors, and really just asking, what are you seeing? What are we doing? What is this? What is this thing that we're doing? In a way that I don't always do when I'm working. I bring what I have and I place it on the stage with my colleagues, and we work from there. But I felt like this was collaborative in a different kind of way.
And we have a clip from the play
Oh.
that we'll go ahead and screen. This is a scene between you and your sister.
Okay.
Was that Keisha? I need her to help me with the pie crust.
I can help you.
No. That's all right, I can do it.
You know, Keisha mentioned that she might want to take a minute before college.
My daughter is going to college. I went to college. You went to college. Our mother went to college. It's not a conversation.
I think your daughter might have a
Are
different...
you trying to tell me how to raise my child?
Nope.
You just take this glass of wine up to Mama.
All right then. Mama?
talked about this community that the cast formed. Can you talk about, I mean, it's a rough play. Can you talk about the bonds between the rest of your performers that were formed over the course of rehearsals?
It was one of those things where we were able to lean on each other, and certain things that are done and said in performance, we were like, it's kind of off limits outside of performance, you know. And when you come and see the play, you'll know. I feel totally safe, especially at the end of the play with the group of people that I'm working with. So that is definitely a plus, and it's necessary with this kind of work.
Would you count this among one of the more challenging roles or plays that you've been in?
It is the most challenging play that I've ever been in, which is a good thing because, you know, you can do play after play and you can get the accolades, but this kind of stretching, I didn't know that I needed, and I learned something new about this play every single time that I do it.
We're doing a great job of talking around this play, by the way. I have to commend us. I hope that the audience isn't like, what the hell are they talking about? What is this show? This play is about race. We'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to say that. The director of the play, Sarah Benson, is white and British.
Right.
And this play is about an African-American family. How did you approach working with a white British director? Were there conversations that happened before you guys even stepped into the rehearsal room about what that dynamic was going to be like?
I had to hear the play with everyone else. You know, I had to hear how people were approaching the characters. And so it wasn't until then that we could really start having the conversation. Because the question that you asked me was a question that I asked Sarah one day when I was like, I don't know. I said, Sarah, when you talk to your friends and say, hey, come see this play Fairview, what do you tell them it's about? And we had this beautiful conversation amongst the cast about what the play is. Just stepping inside of it, you can get lost. I've had friends leave the theater and say, I just had to go for a walk. I had to digest this. And people have come back multiple times to see it so that they can grab onto moments that they probably missed.
The play is designed to make the audience uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that discomfort sort of starts kicking in Act 2.
It does warrant a conversation about race. And it's a conversation that I remember when Obama was elected, people said, oh, now as a country, we're finally going to have a conversation about race. And I used to wonder about that statement because I didn't know when or where do we have this conversation? And I realized that work like Jackie's and having the ability to tell a story in this way is a way to start the conversation. Because in this country, we're always talking about race, but we're not talking about race interracially. We're talking about it intraracially. Black people are talking to black people, Asian people are talking to Asian people, white people are talking to white people. But we rarely get the opportunity to talk about it amongst each other. And in my fantasy, when people are leaving this show, they're able to have that conversation if they really hear what Jackie is asking from us.
Absolutely. I went immediately next door to Fulton Hall with my girlfriend, and we had a drink, and I was like, how many conversations about race have the servers at this bar had to overhear since this show's been mounted? Probably a lot.
Yeah.
You're looking for a drink and a place to sit as soon as possible.
Yeah, and you stumble out, and the closest place is right next
Right,
door.
exactly. I mean, it's interesting what you said about Obama, because I feel in many ways that for a lot of white people in particular, the election of Obama meant, oh, thank God we don't have to talk about race anymore.
Exactly.
Right? So that conversation that maybe we had hoped it would spur for a lot of people was the end of a conversation, because we're not racist anymore. We have a black president.
Right. It set people at ease in a way that it was like, no. Now is the time. Now we can have this conversation. But
in a way, the play reminds me a little bit of a really hard couples therapy session, where there's always the conversation that you know that you need to have around the tenderest issues, but nobody wants to have that conversation. Nobody's like, oh, like, let's sit down on a date night and talk about the thing that's really difficult in this relationship.
Right.
And it's only when there's a rupture, or you're forced to, when you're brought into a therapist's office, for example, and it's like, no, now we're going to look at each other for an hour, or in the case of the show, 90 minutes, and talk about the thing that we don't want to,
right.
that you get to have those really important discussions.
It really is what's brilliant about this play, because it does force you to grapple with yourself. No matter how you identify, you have to grapple with what you are seeing, who you are, where you are in this continuum. I've had white friends say at the end that they grappled with what they should do, you know, and what they can do. And hopefully it allows people to think about what they can do past that moment, what they can do in the world. Because, you know, it's necessary. It's necessary to think past ourselves and have empathy. You know, putting yourself in someone else's shoes can be a revolutionary act.
Before I saw the show, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, oh, you know, this trajectory looks good. Like maybe this is Broadway bound. It won the Pulitzer. You know, it would seem to have a lot of the Broadway elements to it. And then I saw it and I was like, I don't know that this has a Broadway life. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think that A, Broadway is ready for it, B, it's even possible in a larger setting than it currently is in?
I think it's possible. I think it would take a really bold producing group to decide that they want to tackle this. I think that it would be, and I used the word before, revolutionary, especially in a Broadway setting.
I'll go farther and say incendiary, potentially.
Yeah, because when we think about the Great White Way, we don't think about this, you know, and it's not a matter of diversity. It's about how we view this particular matter and how we address it in this country. And I think what would be great about a Broadway run, it feels like, you know, this conversation has been able to be had by a lot of New Yorkers. And there are people who have come from out of town who've seen it. But Broadway is a place that people from all over.
Yes, get the people who are deciding between Phantom and Fairview.
Yeah. And they're going to choose Fairview every time.
Well, I mean, it makes me think of What the Constitution Means to Me, another show that's currently running on Broadway. And when I saw it, I thought, wow, a lot of people in this audience, maybe the people who need to see this show most, it's about, you know, gender-based violence, among other things, went to this show thinking that it was a nice white lady talking about constitutionality. And surprise, they got something that they probably needed to hear. And I'm curious about if you think that, you know, the playbill and the publicity for the play give very little away, but it's the face of a young Black woman. Do you think, even knowing as little as people know about it, even if they just hear, oh, it's about race, do you think that the audience who needs to see the show will go see the show if it transfers to Broadway?
Well, I'm no marketing person,
Mm.
but I don't know that if we just say it's about race,
Right.
then people will go. Because
Right.
I think it's something that people fear in this country. When you say it's about race, people go, oh gosh, you
Right.
know. Um, so it is about a family, and it's about, in the first act, it could be your family, it could be my family, it could be the guy over there's family. You
Right.
know what I mean? It could be anybody's family. Um, and that's what's beautiful about it, that it it could be anyone, but then when it turns, we realize that it can't be anyone's family.
Mm-hmm. So you won an OB recently.
Yes.
Congratulations. This is for Fabulation, for your role in Fabulation?
For my roles in Fabulation and, by the way, Meet Vera Star.
For both of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of those plays are by Lynn Nottage,
Yes.
also a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Mhm.
And since Susan Laurie Parks won the Pulitzer for Top Dog Underdog in 2002, Black women have won almost a quarter of the Pulitzers for Best Drama, which was shocking to me actually when I saw that. I'm curious about, do you think that we are in sort of a golden age for Black female playwrights? And why is it that the live theater, is an arena where Black women are allowed to succeed in the way that they are, and that their voices are heard and given the awards that they deserve?
I mean, I don't know why that is, but I know that the playwrights that you've mentioned, along with a plethora of other playwrights, are writing from their core, writing honestly. They're writing about what they see in America, in their communities, in, the diaspora. And there's an honesty, there's a grit, and they're voices that are lacking. And so I think that people are hungry for it. And so I hope that it's not the golden age, you know what I mean? Because that would mean that it's going to end at some point, and I don't want that to happen. People like Lynn and Susan and Jackie are, paving the way for that. They are, and it's beautiful to see because there's a diversity of voices. Being able to see yourself reflected is something that I wish for all of us. I want to see everyone and the richness of their cultures reflected.
So you work not only in the theater, you work in film, TV, also voiceover.
Yeah.
And one of the themes in Fairview is sort of the white consumption of culture, and about how many of the stereotypes that exist that with Asians, Latinos, Black people, that white people hold, are due to representations in the media, as you mentioned.
Right.
How does that, or does it impact the decisions that you make as an actor? Are there roles that you won't take?
There are, and it's funny, you mentioned voiceover. There was one time that I was booked for a voiceover with a friend of mine, and when, it was a booking that just came about, and when we got there, the material was so offensive, and this was years ago, that we were like, we can't do this. We can't do this and leave here with any part of our dignity intact. And so I remember he and I just kind of mutinied. We called our agent and said, this isn't something that we can do. I think it's important to feel like you do have agency in the world, but especially as actors, I think that too many times people think that you're hungry for anything, and you shouldn't feel like you have to compromise yourself.
If somebody hasn't seen Fairview, why would you tell them that they should come see it before the show closes?
I think that it will change something that you think that you know about yourself, that you think that you know about race. it may be cathartic for you. It may help you to spread light in this world. It is such a brilliant and masterful piece of art that I think that if you want to be in the conversation of, yes, I saw Fairview back in 2019, then because I do think that it's going to be one of those pieces that people talk about for many years to come, that you should come and be a part of the conversation.
I second that. Heather Alicia Simms, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.